Hello, everyone, and welcome to Marvelous Movie Mondays, Season 3, Kelsey. Why is your mouth agape?
Because I'm looking at your channel and I'm just so impressed and proud of you, Dill. Every
Thank
time
you.
I check it, the subscriber count gets bigger and bigger.
Thank
Because
you.
last time I checked it, you just told me off air, you were like, oh, we're almost at 500. I was like, last time I looked at his channel, it was at like 380. But you're right, you're almost at 500 subscribers. I think that's
Yeah,
so awesome.
that's
I'm so happy
exciting.
for
Yeah.
you.
We're back for Season 3. So this is
Yes, we
Season
are.
3 of the channel and of Marvelous Movie Mondays. Last week was our premiere, which was our Season 2 premiere for trivia. It's weird because trivia has only been going on for 2 years now. This has
Yeah.
been going on for 3, but this is our real season opener because this is the first time we're getting to address you directly. We are all bundled up because Kelsey, why don't you tell everyone why we're bundled up? I mean, I'm sure people know
Okay.
because this is coming out Monday, but
Well, we're filming this on like the coldest day of the year so far here in New York.
off.
Let me get the actual degree number. Okay, so it's 18 degrees right now in New
Mm,
York. And for some reason, my building just hasn't turned the heat on. All my radiators are open, ready for the heat to come flooding in, but I'm at the mercy of the building. So
yeah,
if you're watching on video, I'm all bundled up. Jill and I are both wearing hats. I'm
yeah.
literally wearing a sweatshirt and my robe over my sweatshirt. It's ridiculous. I'm
Yeah.
freezing.
Yeah, no, my heat's on. Like my radiator's going. I'm just a pussy. I'm just cold.
Hey,
I'm just
pussies
bundling
are
up anyway.
strong.
Oh yes, they are. So I am wearing my Ravenclaw hat.
Yeah,
Just cause it's the new year. Even though we are
I
talking about
like it.
Marvel. Actually, we're not really talking about Marvel today. We're talking like kind of Marvel adjacent. Every so
Yeah.
often when we don't really have a Marvel movie or show to talk about, and that's why we kind of took January off because we needed a break because this is a lot to keep up every week. But also we didn't really have anything to watch. Black Panther happened, and then we didn't have anything until we get Ant-Man in a few weeks, and that's why we're doing this episode. We're doing an Avengers Movie Club, which is where we take 3 movies from a different Avengers actor. And this week, we're talking about Paul Rudd because of Ant-Man
Mm-hmm.
Quantumania, and we wanted to talk about 3 of his films. So we're going to be talking about Clueless, we're going to be talking about Role Models, and we're going to be talking about Ghostbusters Afterlife. But before we do that, it has been a while, so we have some Marvel news.
Nice.
Specifically, we love to talk about it, and especially this year because this is history making. The Academy Awards nominated 5 nominations for Marvel this year, and they were all for the same movie. It was for Black Panther: Wakanda Forever.
Nice.
And the most interesting thing is that it only overlapped in 2 categories. So the last Black Panther got a few more nominations, but the last Black Panther picked up an original song nomination and a costume design win. And this movie picked up a costume design nomination for the same costume designer and an original song nomination for Rihanna and Ryan Coogler for
Mm-hmm.
doing "Lift Me Up," the song dedicated to Chadwick Boseman. But the
Mm-hmm.
interesting thing is that this movie picked up 3 awards that the first one wasn't nominated for. One of them being Best Visual Effects. Black Panther famously was snubbed for visual effects for the first one. I've gone on air saying I don't like the rhinos in that movie, but I also don't really love the visual
Mm-hmm.
effects in this one. But it was clearly enough for the Academy. They nominated for visual effects, and then another one that was surprisingly omitted from the last Black Panther, but was nominated here was makeup and hairstyling. So the makeup finally got recognized for this one, and I do
Nice.
think that's worthy. I love the Namor makeup. I love all the different tribal makeup and all that stuff. So I'm surprised the first one didn't. And then the big one, the one that got nominated, and this is interesting because aside from WandaVision with the Emmys, really in the Oscars, no Marvel performances have been nominated for acting Oscars. And we got not only a nomination for Angela Bassett for Best Supporting Actress, but we saw her win the Globe and
Mm-hmm.
win the Critics' Choice, which means there's a very good chance she'll go on to win the SAG, the BAFTA, and the Oscar. So she's the front runner now for the Oscar, not just a nomination, but the front runner to win. When the last Black Panther didn't get any acting nominations, the Marvel movies in general have not gotten any nominations, even the ones that aren't produced by Marvel Studios and stuff like the X-Men movies, like Logan. Hugh Jackman never got nominated, so this is a huge feat. The only other comic book performances, the only other superhero movie performances that got nominated were, of course, Heath Ledger and Joaquin Phoenix, who both played the Joker, and they both won.
Mm.
So I think that's
Mm.
probably a good indicator that when an Oscar nominated performance comes from a superhero movie, there's a good chance that they're really big fans of them. So Angela Bassett, if she wins, will join Heath Ledger and Joaquin Phoenix in that kind of rare trifecta of superhero movie performances, and she'd be the first hero to win a superhero Oscar if she wins. I mean, there's still a lot of time before the Oscars, but 5 nominations for Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Doctor Strange and Thor didn't get a single one. Not too surprised there, though I did think Doctor
Mhm.
Strange may squeak in for visual effects. Any thoughts on the Oscar nominations, Kels?
I mean, I'm just really pumped for Angela Bassett. Like you said, Dill, she's on the track to, having a really good shot at winning it. And I think that it would be a very well deserved award. She gave a strong and powerful performance in this film. And it would just be such like a nice little, not send off, but like, a nice little nod to Chadwick Boseman almost. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah, because as we remember, when Chadwick was supposed to win his Oscar, that did not happen because they saved his Oscar for last. And I love Anthony Hopkins and The Father. This is not a slight to him, but when you
Mhm.
plan the whole show to lead up to Chadwick's Oscar and then he doesn't get it, it's like, oh, shit. So that
Yeah.
was kind of unfortunate that it went that way. But we do have other Oscar nominations to talk about, ones that were not Marvel ones, but Marvel actors. Starting, of course, with Michelle Yeoh, who has been in a few Marvel movies, but especially Shang-Chi and Legend of the Ten Rings. Actually, I believe that's maybe the only Marvel movie she's been in, but she's been in a lot of other great movies, and she got nominated for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Kate Blanchett, who played Hela in Thor Ragnarok, got nominated for Best Actress for the movie Tar. I believe that's it for that category. For Best Actor, no Marvel actors there. Supporting actress, yes, we saw Angela Bassett. We also saw Carrie Condon, who I believe is the voice of Friday, right? Kelsey, is she the voice of
Yes,
Friday?
she
Yes.
is.
Carrie Condon getting nominated for the Banshees of Inisherin. We
Mhm.
also see in supporting actor, we see Barry Keoghan from Eternals getting nominated for the Banshees of Inisherin, and we see Brian Tyree Henry from the Eternals getting nominated for Causeway. So 2 Eternals picking up supporting actor nominations, and then 2 other ones.
Wow.
Stephanie Shu, who was in Everything Everywhere All at Once, she's also in a few scenes of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. She's the friend at the bar, who's like, "Oh, I don't believe that superhero shit," and then they open the portals, and she's like, "Oh shit." She is nominated for Best Supporting Actress for Everything Everywhere All at Once as well. And then Ke Huy Quan, who is not in Marvel Cinematic Universe yet, but he's going to be in season 2 of Loki, also nominated for Everything Everywhere All at Once, and is likely going to win that Oscar. So a lot of Marvel actors. I'm just going to rattle it off one more time: Kate Blanchett, Michelle Yeoh, Angela Bassett, Carrie Condon, Stephanie Shu, Ke Huy Quan, Barry Keoghan, and Brian Tyree Henry, all picking up Oscar nominations. That's very exciting. And that's kind of the spirit of the show we're doing today, is seeing an actor and seeing what work they do outside of Marvel. And it's cool to see them get recognized outside of it.
Dale, this is really off topic, but I've had this thought
Yeah.
for like about a week now. It's been, mulling around in my head a little bit. And I have a little bit of a prediction for,
Mm.
phase 5, phase 6 of the
Oh, okay.
MCU. And I
Yeah.
think that we might see a well-known actor who's kind of, been having a lot of good roles under her belt recently, doing a lot of great projects and a lot of great things. I think she might join the MCU. This is my prediction
Okay.
for the future of the MCU.
Because of stuff you
Um,
read, or just an inkling, a
no,
gut
just because I
instinct?
have an inkling. Because I feel like the MCU likes to pick up actors when they've kind of like,
Hit their hot streak.
have done really good things.
Hmm.
So, do you want to know who it is?
Yeah. Wait, let me guess. Let me guess.
Okay, go ahead.
So can you give me like a hint of like what projects they're in? Like, are they in like
Um,
Netflix stuff or? Oh,
lot.
well, no. I was gonna say Jenna Ortega, but she's already been in it. She was in Iron Man
Oh
3.
no!
Yeah.
It's not Jenna Ortega.
But I would love to see her as an older person be in the
Think
MCU.
TV and think comedy.
Oh God, Jennifer Coolidge.
Oh,
I would love that.
very close,
I'm
but
gonna
no.
shoot my webs. Oh, Aubrey Plaza.
Yeah,
That's who you're
that's
thinking of?
my
Nice,
prediction for
nice.
phase 5 and 6 of the MCU. I don't know. I could see her totally being like a baddie or like someone's like side character turned into hero type of storyline for her.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or
I
I could,
just see it. I have
yeah,
a
I could see
feeling.
her in kind of like a She-Hulk type show where like she's kind of more like
Yeah.
laid back, but not like yeah, it's more a laid back TV atmosphere, but she gets to kind of be her dry sense of humor. That'd be great. If Aubrey Plaza, if you're watching this, which of course you are,
Obviously.
and you are in the MCU, let us know in the comments below because you're allowed to do that.
Yeah. Kevin Feige will allow it.
Yeah.
For Marvel's
Um,
Movie Mondays? Yeah, tell him.
yeah. So there you go. And obviously another big piece of news is DC, which we're not going to talk about because we're not a DC podcast, but James Gunn released his like big slate of movies for DC. He did his Kevin Feige announcement ever since he became the Kevin Feige of DC. He just dropped his whole announcement of like, here's what I'm doing. And
Oh,
it looks
wow.
exciting. I mean, I'm excited. But that's for another time, another show, another place, another way. Let's talk about Paul Rudd, though. That's why we're here
Let's do
today.
it.
Paul Rudd, who's never been nominated for an Oscar yet.
So I
And
do have some background on Paul Rudd, like I've
please give
been
us
trying to do.
all the history of Rudd.
So it was I didn't see much about like how he really got into acting. Like his parents first of all, I didn't know both of his parents are from London and then they
Hmm,
moved to oh, I hit the mic. I'm so sorry if that was an obnoxious sound you just heard.
it's okay.
Um his parents are originally from London, moved to America. Paul Rudd was born on April 6th, so he is an Aries just like you, Dill.
You know where he was
Um
born, right?
he was born in Passaic, New Jersey.
Yeah, baby. I don't know about Passaic,
Represent.
but like New Jersey, represent. Let's go.
Oh, that's according to Wikipedia, it was Passaic.
Yeah. No, I just don't know
um,
where that is, but that's awesome.
oh, I think it's by like the Rutherfords. I
Oh,
think.
okay.
I
Oh, okay.
could
Yeah,
be
yeah, yeah.
wrong. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
yeah, I
Okay.
think it's in like the Newark area, like somewhere
Mm,
around there.
okay. So I've probably been
Um,
near or in Passaic.
yeah. He went to so he ended up moving to Missouri. He lived in California for like a hot minute. I think like moved back to somewhere in Missouri. He ended up going to school in the University of Kansas, where he majored in theater. He started off his career making, guest starring roles, doing TV appearances. In 1995, he landed Clueless, which we'll discuss is like his big kind of breakout performance. He then went on to play Mike Hannigan in Friends, Phoebe Buffay's, husband that she ends up marrying, if you know Friends. And in 2004, that's kind of where his career took a major leap was when he started working with Judd Apatow in
Mm.
the Anchorman movies. And then he kind of just went on to blow up
Yeah, like all those
there.
raunchy comedies. Yeah, 40-Year-Old
Yeah,
Virgin, Knocked Up, and then
exactly.
the
Yeah.
one we'll talk about, Role Models.
Yeah. Like you said, Dill, he doesn't have any Oscar noms under his belt, but he does have one Golden Globe nomination under his belt
Hmm.
for Best Actor in a TV Series Musical Comedy for Living with Yourself, which was a show that
Oh,
he
cool, cool.
did on Netflix. It was a really interesting concept. I never actually got around to watching it, but I remember it's like he lives like with this clone of himself or something. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I think I watched the first episode of it and wasn't hooked, but my roommate
Mhm.
Landon, Landon, he watched
Yeah.
all of it and loved it. I think a few
Oh,
times he
wow.
watched it, so he's a fan. So maybe I'll have to check out the whole
We'll
thing
have
at
to
some
check
point.
it out.
But I was definitely a big Friends guy. Like he was a great part of Friends. And it's so interesting just watching his career, seeing how he molds into like the really funny guy because I feel like
Yeah.
he starts as kind of just like the nice guy. Like he's just the guy. He doesn't really
Right.
have this like any not I don't want to say unique, but like he's not like a slapstick kind of like Jim Carrey like comedian. He's
No,
not like
no,
that.
no.
And
He
he never
doesn't
really
have like
becomes
a
that, but
yeah.
yeah.
All of his I feel like his acting and his comedy for sure is definitely more on the subtle side.
Yeah.
And yeah, he just comes
Yeah.
off as a really charismatic, charming dude.
Right. Yeah, but even earlier in his career, he's not even comedic. He like Friends. I wouldn't say he's like a funny part of Friends. He's just kind of there as
Yeah.
like a romantic interest, and we'll talk about it with Clueless because I think like that's a really good indicator of kind of like the most subdued and most subtle version of him. Do you want to get right into Clueless since we're there?
Yeah, let's
Cool.
get
Let's get
there.
into Clueless, 1995. Amy Heckerling. Do you have anything to say about Clueless,
Yes.
Kels? In terms of
Well,
synopsises or something like that?
yes, absolutely. Well, obviously, first of all, Dale, this was not my first rodeo with Clueless.
I'll tell
Being
you right now, this is my first.
no way. This was the
Yeah.
first time you watched Clueless?
Well, okay, so it was always the whole like Clueless versus Mean Girls, Clueless versus Mean Girls, and I know for like different eras that's different because like if you grew up
Yeah.
and Clueless came out when you were young, Clueless is your movie, and then Mean Girls came later, and people were like, oh, it's just another Clueless. But
Right.
for us, we were born after Clueless, and like Mean Girls was like that movie for us. So I never really went back to Clueless because people were like, "Oh, you either like Clueless or you like Mean Girls," and I was like, "Well, I love Mean Girls," so I just never really felt the urge to go back to Clueless. I don't know, and also
Yeah.
just like the whole Brittany Murphy tragedy, it was always hard. I
Mm,
was like, oh, I don't really want to watch that. Like, it makes me sad whenever I watch an actor who died young. It's always hard to watch. Like, it's
sure.
hard to watch Chadwick Boseman stuff now. Like, if they die when they're older, it's also very sad. But it's like, oh, they lived a great life. But when they die
Yeah.
so young, it's why I have trouble watching the original West Side Story with Natalie Wood. Like, stuff like
Mm,
that. So there's a lot of reasons why I never really went to Clueless, and because I'm a fan of Emma, so like I just like to read the book. I'd rather read it than go watch an adaptation of it. But I did
yeah.
watch it finally for this. Obviously, I did sit through and watch it. But yeah, this is my first rodeo.
Wow.
First
Oh my
rodeo.
god, I cannot wait to hear what you thought. Well, first of all, I know you were saying Clueless versus Mean Girls, but I feel like it's necessary to point out that neither one of these is really the original kind of Mean Girl high school storyline. I
Mm,
think we have to credit Heathers that came out in
yeah,
1988 before,
true.
because I feel like they're all very much like a
Yeah,
variant of Heathers,
yeah.
if you
Like the
will.
whole John Hughes era. Yeah, like even like
Yeah.
Breakfast Club has shades of it, and Ferris
Yeah, for
Bueller is
sure.
more for like the male perspective. But yeah, for sure. Like
Yeah.
it's all those teen comedies. I mean, that was really the era. It was like the 80s to the thousands. Like that was it. Like right now, we're not seeing a lot of those. Like I think the last like
Yeah.
huge one that really broke out and burst onto the scenes was like Lady Bird, and then maybe
Mhm.
Booksmart. But even Booksmart
Yeah.
didn't get the best box office. Like, and Lady Bird didn't either. But because Lady
Well,
Bird picked up Oscars and stuff.
it's funny that you say that, Dill, because I think it's because like the movie industry and like the demographics for movies have just changed throughout,
Yeah.
the years. Because I think that like Clueless, like Mean Girls, like these kind of movies, like these quote unquote chick flick movies were really like hammered in for like a very specific demographic to view and
Hmm.
enjoy. And it was, young teenage girls. And
Right.
now we as like a society has evolved past the point of having like very gender specific movies, and it's
Hmm.
like movies nowadays are made for like all types of audiences, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
and I'm wondering if streaming has something to do with it too, because like a lot of the
Yeah.
stuff that we see is like chick flicks, like just when you look at Netflix, there's a few of them, like The Kissing Booth and Tall Girl. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying these are good movies, but like even like the To All the Boys I Loved Before, all those things are
Yeah.
dropping right to streaming. If they did go to
Right.
theaters, who knows? They may have been like these smash hit money makers. Who knows?
Right, right.
Which is kind of like something that is a little sad to think about. Like, oh man, like I would have loved to see what would have happened for their legacies, because now they're just kind of on Netflix, and I feel like people kind of forget about them after like 2 years, um,
Yeah.
because they made the sequels even, and now they've kind of forgotten about them,
Yeah.
which happens with a lot of Netflix stuff. And now we're all
What
gonna
I'm
forget because we can't share our passwords anymore. But that's another story for another time.
What I was excited to learn through this rewatch, I can't believe I didn't know this before, but it was directed and written by Amy Heckerling.
Hmm.
And I was like, yeah, women represent. That's amazing.
Yeah, Amy
So,
Heckerling directed, yeah, like Look Who's Talking, European Vacation, and famously Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which is another one which is very much about like the teenage high school experience. The only difference is that one was written by Cameron Crowe, whereas here you have something that's written and directed by Amy Heckerling, and I think it shows. I think definitely you can definitely see when it's her directing a male script versus her directing
mm,
her own script. It's a big
right.
difference, I think. Yeah.
So let's get into it, Dill. Here's a little synopsis that I wrote for Clueless. Privileged high schoolers Cher tries to navigate real life responsibilities, taking the new girl in town under her wing and her complicated crush on her stepbrother.
Yes. And I think that's like the first point of like contention that this movie has for some people is like, is it incest? Is it
I mean,
well,
it's
and the whole thing is that they try to
yeah.
really stress the fact that like he is her father's like second wife's stepson or whatever, like
That he's
something
not
like
even
that.
married
Yeah.
to anymore.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
there's no blood relation, but I feel like once you cross that line, you can't
Yeah.
really go backwards. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's always been something, because I mean I've read Emma, like I said, like this is based on Emma, which is a classic Jane Austen book. Have you ever
Mhm.
read that one, Kels? Or
I have not
okay,
actually.
um, but I read that book, and I also saw the adaptation with Anya Taylor-Joy that came out a few years ago, which is so
Mhm.
good. It's beautifully designed, but that's just that story. So like I'm a little bit more forgiving, because I'm like, well, that's what the book is about too. It's like this guy who was like kind of connected to the family. Now he's not, and she's kind of plays with him like he's like this dumb brother, but then she ends up liking him. And
Right.
yeah, and I think a lot of the issues that one might have with the story, either in terms of what happens or like the structure, because it is a little all over the place. It's like, is it about her with this makeover? Oh no, it's about her trying to get this guy. Oh no, but now her friend likes this guy. No, now she likes this guy. Now her friend likes the brother. Now she likes the brother. What's going on? It's so
Right.
much intertwining.
Yeah.
um and I first looked at that as a negative, like
Yeah.
this plot is all over the place. What is the singular plot of this movie? But then I
Yeah.
realized, hey, it's based on a book, Emma, and I think Emma, just from a book perspective, I think with a book you're able to kind of like lay out the plot a little easier because you have more time to tell the story than in like an hour and a half like this movie. But also I was
Mhm.
thinking high school is all over the place. So it kind of makes sense. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
high school is like that. You'll move on to a different crush every single week. So like I get it from that perspective. And for that reason, I think it actually is like successful in showing that kind of always flowing with the wind type nature of high school.
Yeah. Yeah, Dill, I totally agree with what you're saying because when I sat down and I tried to write the synopsis, I was like, what is the plot of the movie? I was like, how do I
Hmm.
sum this up in like 2 to 3 sentences, like what everything that goes on in this movie? Because it starts
Hmm.
with her like trying to get her grades up. That seems to be the main mission of the beginning. It's like, oh, I need to get better grades, so I'm going to get my 2 teachers to be, romantic with each other so that they're happier, so they give us all better grades. And then she's trying to, it's the Regina George and Katie Heron relationship. They're trying to like make Ty like, the new popular girl in school, and then she tries getting with the gay guy in school, not realizing that he's gay.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it is a little bit all over the place, but I really appreciate this movie just because I love a quotable movie, and I love like this movie's like
Yeah.
filled with iconic moments, iconic imagery.
Hmm.
Cher is just such like like a she, I almost want to say like an anti-hero, but she's not really because she does everything thinking that she's doing it out of the goodness of her heart, but it
I
is still self-serving at the end of the day. She's complicated and I
It
like
is,
her.
but I still think it's better than like Regina George, because Regina George is like very clearly, ulterior
Yeah,
motives and stuff like that. Like I
exactly.
find I find Cher very endearing. I do. I,
Yeah.
I think she does mean well. And I think it's one of those kind of like even Elle Woods type things where it's like maybe you're not doing this with like the right intentions, but you're doing it with the best intentions.
Right.
And I think
That's
that's
a good way of
something to
putting
say.
it.
And I think Alicia Silverstone also does play it really well to where like
Yeah.
you kind of fall in love with her.
Yeah.
I think the biggest issue though is that at the end of the day, this is eventually a romance between her and Paul Rudd. And I think Paul Rudd, kind of what I was alluding to earlier, he's kind of if he wasn't Paul Rudd, I think he's a kind of nothing character here. Like I really do. Like he's
Huh.
there as like a circumstantial thing. Like she brings up the fact that he's the brother, but I feel like we need a little bit more connection between them, because I feel like in
Sure.
the second half they just start showing like him glimpsing and like smiling at her, and I'm like, wait, where did all this come from? Like I almost wish
Right.
there was a little bit more conflict maybe earlier on. And then like there's one scene where they really connect. Like when he picks her up and drives her home, I feel like that could be the scene where you
Yeah.
really have like this really emotional connection moment. And I was just waiting for something like that to click. Whereas like it was just kind of like it came out of the blue. I knew it was coming because I've read the book, but it was like it kind of came out of the blue. And again, if it wasn't
Sure.
Paul Rudd, is he that much of a charismatic presence? Like I think Paul Rudd does a lot of heavy lifting for that role, but I wish
Yeah.
we like loved Josh just as much as she did, to where we like felt that, because I didn't. But maybe it's also from my perspective. I don't know, Kelsey, because also Paul Rudd's a dreamboat. So like, did you fall in love
Right.
with Josh in this movie?
Yeah, I mean, it's complicated. Like their whole romance has some layers to it, right? Because it's almost like enemies to lovers, and then it's almost like a forbidden romance because they have this like weird familial connection that
Hmm.
like not that it's not
Right.
really existent anymore. So it's kind of like it's more about like the tension and like I feel like the build up to their romance, even though like you're saying there's really not much of that happening because we
Right.
only see them interact like so many times, but like you kind of see it in the way where when she's going out on the date where she has like the infamous Calvin Klein dress line where she's like what are you wearing? A dress. Says who? Calvin Klein. Like when she's going on the date for the quote unquote date for the first time with Christian, he's like, "You're not gonna let her wear that, right?" He starts getting a little territorial, a little jealous, you can see it in that scene. And then later on, when Ty is like, "Oh, I think I have a crush on Josh," she's like, no, like, I can't let that happen. Like, you guys would just never work out." So then you kind of start seeing these signs
Mm,
of like, "Oh, you guys are crushing on each other. I see what's happening here."
yeah.
But I mean, I just like you keep saying, Jill, like, if it wasn't Paul Rudd, like, yeah, this character would probably fall really flat. And I think that just like commends like his ability to like really balance like the like annoyingly playful, kind of like grumpy,
Right.
grump to her sunshine kind of trope.
Hmm.
It's just like this beautiful balance between being like playful and like annoying her and bullying her, but then like also, being there for her at the end of the day and
Yeah.
being, her kind of like rock or her moral
Yeah.
compass. He helps her with a driving lesson. He picks her up after she gets held up at gunpoint, traumatizing.
I know. This movie's all
And
over the place.
no, yeah,
I
it's
love
like
it.
Cher lives a crazy life.
Yeah. I do agree though, like he is very charismatic, but even then, like I think like he's only gotten more funny. Like I think this
Yeah,
movie is probably his tamest in terms of like this and Mike and Friends. Like it's very much feels like he
sure.
is a supporting role in the fact that he has to kind of play the straight man because everyone
Yes.
around him is so colorful a personality. Whereas in
Yeah.
other movies, he gets to be the colorful personality. And even in role models, which we'll talk about, I think he even plays that role of like kind of the more straight man to the other more chaotic presence, but he
Yeah.
still gets a few more moments to be chaotic. Whereas here, I really don't think he has those like big moments of comedy. Like I don't find much of his stuff funny in here, and it doesn't have to be. Like there's so
Mhm.
much other funny stuff, and I think going back to the great stuff about this movie, I think it is so funny. Like there are so many great one-liners, and not
Mhm.
just one-liners, but visual gags. Like a tie falling down the stairs gets me every time I watch it like 40 times in like the prom, right? It's a prom or something,
Yeah.
or this dance, and she just falls down the stairs. It's so funny. And then when she's on the bed trying to like play footsie with Christian, then
Yeah,
she
yeah,
falls off
yeah.
the bed. Those
Yeah.
visual cues are so funny. And it really is refreshing to see. Like I really do miss kind of like you said, like that era of like where these were like more mainstream movies because we really don't get that much. Like I feel like everything's
Yeah.
thrown onto Netflix and it sucks because like this stuff is it's so refreshing after you watch like a heavy movie. Like after I watched one of these like really dramatic international film nominees for the Oscars earlier that day, and then I came home and
Mm.
watched Clueless, and I was like, oh, this is like a breath of fresh air compared to that really
Yeah.
sorrowful film about suicide. I was like, all right, this is great.
Right.
And in Heather's case, like it kind of blends both.
Yeah.
But yeah, Clueless though, I think it's a really nice breath of fresh air, even if some of it's a little dated, some of it's a little all over the place, but I think at its heart and at its core, it's strong for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, oh, I forgot what I was gonna say. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I just think that Paul Rudd is so good at like just being quick and like
Mm,
witty. Like he's really good at like the throwaway. Like if you've ever like been doing comedy and like taking an acting class, like at some point a teacher has told you just throw that line away, and you don't really know what that means, but if you watch Paul Rudd, like you can get a master class on what the throwaway line is. Like he's so good at just like he's so good at not giving too much, like he doesn't play into the comedy, like he just like plays into like he's very subtle, and it's very just like relaxed and
hmm
like it's just an ease to
Yeah.
his comedy that I love so much.
Mhm. And with Amy Heckerling's script, that's also a tribute to her because she is able to write something that you don't have to really go for the comedy. It's there
Yeah.
for you, and you just have to
Yeah,
say the line. I think that's a
exactly.
big strength. Is like he just has to say the line, and because she wrote something so funny, it delivers. And I think that's this whole movie is. Oops, I'm trying to like fix my hat. The
Yeah, but we're
cameras,
mirrored,
yeah, the
so I
camera's mirrored.
totally yeah, I get it.
Yeah, but yeah, I do like this one. I think with more watches, I'll like it more. But like as a first watch, this was nice. But again, I'm still Team Mean Girls. Like if we're gonna compare, Mean Girls
Sure.
is the for me the S tier film. This is more like high B tier or like mid B tier, just because I haven't seen it
Yeah.
a bunch. But like Mean Girls, man, like that's superior. I
Oh,
don't know.
and on this watch through deal, I finally like I don't know how this joke didn't click for me before, but when they first meet Ty in the gym class and she's like, "Oh, I'm like just like feeling all nervous. Like I could, go for like an herbal supplement. Like if you guys know what I'm talking about." And she's like clearly asking for weed, but they're like, "Oh, like we don't know if I don't think we have any tea in the cafeteria, but you could get Coke if you want." And she's like, "No shit, you guys got Coke here?"
Yeah,
And they're like
yeah.
obviously talking about Coca-Cola, and then
But
I like
she's
I
on drugs. Yeah.
right, and then I was like, "Oh, this is a bit about drugs. I get
Yeah.
it." And it
Yeah.
was just like one
No,
of
that's
those
so good too,
moments,
because
like,
because
yeah,
they make it out to be that Ty is the clueless one, but I think kind of the
right,
irony is that she's a little ditzy, but I think she knows a lot more than she leads on. Like the fact that she's
yeah,
like, you know, she's right. The girls are clueless that she's talking about drugs, but she's also clueless that
yeah,
they're talking about soda. So I don't know. Maybe they're all clueless. But yeah, really
yeah,
fun. And rest in peace, Brittany Murphy. That's just so sad to see. I'm like, oh, Brittany Murphy
yeah,
gone too soon. She's great in this too. I think she's probably
yeah.
my favorite part of it. Um, Cool. That's Clueless. What would you give this out of 10? We got to rate these. I
I
forget.
I gave Clueless an 8 out of 10.
All right, I went a little lower. I went 7 out of 10, but still high.
Okay,
Pretty good. All right. So let's move on to role models, shall we?
let's do it. Okay, Role Models came out in 2008. It was directed by David Wayne. He's famous for directing Wet Hot American Summer, which,
Mm,
correct me if I'm wrong, also stars Paul
it does.
Rudd.
It does.
Okay, that's
Yep.
what I thought. That's what I thought, because I've never seen the original. I just know from the reboot he was in it.
Hmm.
So I was
Yeah.
like, so he must be in the original.
Yeah, I mean, narrowing this down to 3 films is always tough, but we tried to go for his breakout, which was Clueless, and then we go for, like, something that's really new, which in this case was Afterlife, and then we kinda, like, went with, "Okay, let's find one of his, like, mid-2000s comedies that kind of, like,
Yeah.
indicates the performance of Ant-Man," but then we were like, Anchorman, everyone's seen it, and, like, this one is also one that I think, like, I hadn't seen, I don't know if you had seen,
No, I have not.
yeah, so, like, it was kind of just a chance to see something new, and then also because I think this is the biggest part he's had of all these movies. Like, I think he's a supporting
Yeah.
character in Anchorman. He's supporting and Knocked Up. In Wet Hot American Summer, he's supporting. So this is kind
Right.
of like his leading role. So we figured, let's go role models.
And David Wayne has also directed a few episodes of New Girl, if you're a fan of New Girl, and he's also
Ah,
directed some episodes of Miracle Workers. It's I believe, an Amazon Prime show with
mm.
Daniel Radcliffe.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, so that was just like a little bit on David Wayne, because I'm always curious about like what other things I kind of get into. And also we chose role models because Paul Rudd has a writing credit on it. He helped
Oh,
write the
that's
script
right.
for it.
Yes, he did.
So we wanted to, get a taste of what he's like, behind the camera as much as he is in front of it. Um, so here's my little synopsis for role models. After getting into some trouble with the law, best friends Danny and Wheeler have to do community service hours being mentors to troubled kids.
Yeah. Um, I was watching this movie and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be like your stereotypical, like, this is not acceptable nowadays kind of
Yep.
humor. And there's some of it.
Yep.
There's some of it. But I was surprised at how much heart it did have at the end.
Yeah.
I was like, because it's kind of gonna go there, but I was like, wow, like a majority of this is them trying to connect with these kids
Yeah.
and like him trying to get his life together for this girl. And I didn't expect that. I thought it would be a lot more of like kind of like a Jackass with kids, just like the kids clowning around and
Sure.
doing shit. And we
Yeah.
see that a lot more with Sean William Scott's kid that he mentors is more of like the kind of very verbal what's the word, profane, um
Yeah. Watch
whereas
it,
the
profanity.
Paul Rudd's kid is more of like the one who's just kind of doesn't fit in, not just with his peers. He fits in with his peers. It's more he doesn't fit in with his family or with society. And I actually
Yeah.
really like that. Like I was like, wow, this is actually kind of touching, and it kind of gave me New Girl vibes at the end of like the adults doing silly stuff and like
Mhm.
kind of helping out the kid. Like it did feel very Jessica Day. Like Jessica Day would dress up in the
Yeah.
royal, regal, medieval shit and
No
go fight with
questions
those
asked.
kids. Like it
Absolutely.
gave me that vibe, and I'll admit there's some humor that's definitely dated, but
Yeah.
I think all in all, I really enjoyed this. Like I was surprised how much I enjoyed this because I
Yeah.
expected a different movie going in, and I think it's always refreshing when you get something a lot more nuanced. Not nuanced, that's a wrong word for it, but a little more thoughtful and heartfelt than I expected. But what was your thought on this, Kels, as a first time viewer?
Yeah, Dill. It was super, super dated, like right off the bat, like the F slurs getting thrown around
Yeah,
and like
that stuff's not
words
good.
like
Yeah.
homo and like, like calling people gay in like a negative way, like all that
Mm.
stuff. I was like, oh my God, this is so
Mm.
2008. I cannot believe we were
To
like
be
this. Like,
to
this
be
is so
fair though,
embarrassing.
there is a scene in Clueless where the guy's rattling off all these gay slurs when he's talking about Christian. He is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So you see that in a lot of movies. It's not
yes.
just it's a flaw of I think movies in general, not necessarily the specific movies. But I get what you're saying though. Yeah, it's
No,
it's it's cringy.
there is some really dated stuff in Clueless as well. They also say the R word in
Hmm.
Clueless like
Yeah.
that. I'm not saying Clueless is any better. It's
Right. Right.
probably
Right.
worse. But yeah, I really didn't really start coming around to this movie until like really towards the second half of it, like when, Paul Rudd's character really starts coming around to the idea. I think it was when he ate dinner with Christopher Mintz Plasse? Is that how you
Mince
say his
Bloss.
name?
Yeah. Mince
Mintz
Bloss. We
Plasse.
can just call him
His
McLovin if you want.
Yeah, McLovin. Yeah, literally. McLovin's character, Augie, he goes to dinner with his parents and kind of sees how like his family responds to him being involved in like the LARPing and all that stuff. And like he really is like, no, like your kid's awesome. Like he should do what makes him happy. And I think that's when I kind of started like coming around to
Hmm.
the movie. Like it really got, I feel like, really heartwarming after
Right.
from there on out. But
Hmm.
for the most part, I was like, I think that this is Paul Rudd's most unlikable character I've ever seen
Well,
him in.
well, that's the thing, and that's why I kind of liked it because I was like, we're
Sure.
seeing a new side to him. We're seeing like a total asshole because he is. He's
Yeah.
a total asshole. Like he gets in this fight with the coffee shop people early on where he's like, "Venti is it does not mean large in Italian.
Oh
Grande means large,
yeah.
and tall means large, but venti does not mean large in Italian, and that's your only size for large. Like this is he's correcting this
Yeah,
girl, and
yeah,
she's
yeah.
like." Fuck off, dude. But then his girlfriend at the time is like, venti means 20 ounces, and he's like, oh fuck. Like he's such an asshole, and I think that's the whole point. Is that Sean
Yeah.
William Scott's character really isn't? He's just kind of immature. So it's like you got someone
Yeah.
who's immature and then someone who's just a jerk. And to kind of pair
Yeah.
them with these kids, it kind of shows Sean William Scott how to be more mature, but also Paul Rudd's character how to just be nice. And I kind of like that because Paul Rudd, like I said with Clueless, it was almost like I've seen it before, like kind of just like he's kind of the sweet guy on the side. And in Ghostbusters Afterlife is more of like the Ant-Man thing where like he's a little bit
Yeah.
more, he does a little more action. But here it was like very interesting because it was like someone who's very unlikable and he has this arc. For me, I started to come around to him at the campfire when he was talking to him by the
Mhm.
campfire with McLovin, and talking about he was like knitting him or sewing him the little badge or whatever, and like, there was this nice sweet moment. Um, like I think that's where I started to come around to him. And then when he told off the king, he was like, he killed you, to Ken Jeong's character, which I also love
Yeah.
his little
Yeah.
appearance in. But yeah, I think I like the movie because of that, because it's an unconventional performance from him, but he still gets to be Paul Rudd at the end. That's the thing. Like he still gets to be what we know him as, but there's a
Right.
journey to get there. He's not the same character from the beginning to the end, whereas I'd argue in Clueless and in the next film we'll talk about, he is kind of the same character consistently throughout. Whereas here, I think he changes, and I think even in
Yeah.
Ant-Man, we kind of see like Scott Lang, and I think this is the only time I've really seen this huge arc to where it feels like night and day in a good way, for his character. So I really like that aspect, but I agree it's hard to get into because he is so unlikable, and you're like, wow, like I don't want to watch you. I hate you. And that's why I think it's also important is because you want to be able to take the kid side from the from the very get go, and
Yeah.
then see the adults change. And I think because a lot of other movies would be more about try to fix this kid, but this movie is trying to say no, the kid's fine. It's you got
Yeah.
to fix the role model. And
Right.
I like that aspect a lot. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. I like that, Dill.
yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that in this film and just like some of his other work, like even we can kind of even see it in Ghostbusters Afterlife. Like he kind of really likes these roles that feel like almost like a some sort of like savior to like I feel like a mentor figure to some younger character, just because like in this one he kind of like takes on like almost like a father figure type role to McLovin's character,
Yeah.
because it's not like his biological father he's living with. It's like the stepfather, or like his mom's boyfriend or something. I don't even know if they're actually married, but he, really steps in as like a father figure type role. You can also see this in the Fundamentals of Caring, the movie that he
Mm,
was in Netflix, which is definitely more of like a drama, more of a serious role that
mhm.
he took on doing as a caretaker to I forget what he has, but I think he might be paraplegic. But he kind of has these like savory, like mentory roles that I think Paul Rudd's just so good at playing, just because
Right.
it's not hard for him to like really be empathetic and um just kind of want to be there for these uh other characters, which I
Yeah.
like. He just seems
Yeah.
like such a nice guy. Like,
Yeah.
I want to grab a beer with him.
Right. Um, but I think we should talk about the comedy, because there's some that's like kind of, cringy, but there's some, like I said with Clueless, like visual stuff that just like I was cracking up, and I didn't want to, I didn't expect to, because I was looking at this, I
Mm,
was like, this is the movie. It came out when we were 10 years old, and I was like, I remember being told I couldn't see this in theaters because it looked raunchy. And
uh-huh.
I heard it was inappropriate, and I was like, oh, okay, this is gonna be one of those like stupid, like kind of mid 2000s cringy male gaze comedies, and to an extent it
Right.
is, but there are so many, like, even in the beginning when they're selling that energy drink, and I think you turned your mic off by accident. They like have that energy drink, and he starts peeing, and it's just green. Like
Yeah.
that, I
Yeah.
cracked up. And then the other one is, no pun intended, cracked up when the camera cuts to Stifler. I call him Stifler because that's his character in American Pie. Sean William Scott's just laying face down in the middle of the
Yeah.
campground.
Yeah, yeah,
Big kid.
yeah. Yeah.
That was really funny. Like,
Yeah.
the visual gags in this are so funny as well, and Jane
Yes.
Lynch's character too, like that she's in charge of this like program for kids, but she's like just a little bit off, or it's a little bit problematic. Like, she's
Yes.
great in this movie. Elizabeth Banks kind of takes on like the more straight role, like in terms of just
Yeah.
like, just kind of consistent, but even she has like good moments. Like, I really liked just all the performances in this. I think Sean William Scott, he's not the best actor, but he's funny as fuck. Like, he just makes me laugh so much,
Yeah.
in this movie especially. Yeah, like just I really laughed a lot in this movie, like more than I
Yeah.
expected to. And I think that's the thing, is I expected Clueless to be this masterpiece. So when I saw it, I was like, this is good. Whereas here I was like, this is not gonna be good. And I was like, this is good. And I think I almost
Oh,
like this
wow.
more because I got like more of a like surprise out of it. I don't know. Do you have any
Well,
like funny moments that stand out to you?
I really like you said, like I think it was the physical comedy and the visual gags that were the funniest, because I think that we've just evolved to the point where like what was written, most of the
Mm,
jokes that were written are like we just see as like outdated and like just super offensive at this point. Where I think in Clueless the writing is smarter. And
hmm.
even when it's, because like it's not always offensive, the things that are being said in
No.
Clueless, like like her iconic like as if moment, and like the driving on the freeway is like really funny in Clueless. um but yeah, the visual gags I really liked. I liked any scene where it was like the medieval, like they're
LARPing.
fighting and like
Yeah.
they're talking in old English. Like I thought that like that was all super funny, especially since we had just watched like LARPing
Hawkeye.
in
Yeah.
Hawkeye. So I was like, oh my God, this is like a Marvel reference and it didn't even realize it yet.
Yeah.
And I really liked the end when they all dressed up as the band Kiss. I thought that
Yeah.
that was really funny, and they
Yeah.
all looked like really cool.
Yeah.
I was
I
like, "Damn."
along the LARPing note, I love the scene where he kind of goes to apologize at the diner, and they're all in their LARPing outfits, and he's
Yes.
talking to him, and then the lady comes over, "Denver omelet?" And she's like, "Do you want syrup on it?" He's like, "Decaf, decaf." Like, it's just
Yeah,
so
yeah,
funny because
yeah.
you see Ken Jeong just break in character. He's like, "Why thou's come to the king at his royal supper?" And he's like, "No, no, no, decaf, decaf." Like, oh, just so funny to me. I don't know. I
Yeah.
really like this comedy. I thought it was good. And I think the kids are really fun too. Like, the one
Yeah.
kid is very vulgar, but I think he's hilarious. Bobby J. Thompson, and then Christopher Mintz-Plasse, I think, has like some really nice moments when he's like, "Hey, you want to come in and play this game?" And Paul Rudd's like, "Nah, man, I'm okay." And he kind of has this like, "Okay," like it's that one moment where you're like, "Oh man, he's like oh, he's so alone. It's so sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really root for Augie, and I like his little romance at the end. He finds the
Yeah,
girl. Like,
I
such
thought
a good
that
character arc.
he
Yeah.
McLovin had a great little character arc. I think that he was honestly like the standout character and actor in this movie. I got to be honest. I really really enjoyed his performance.
Yeah.
Um which it was unexpected. I didn't know that he was going to have this cute little arc and I was like, "Oh, this is sweet. I like this."
Yeah. Um, cool. So that's role models. What did you give this, Kelsey, on a scale of 1 to 10?
I gave role models a 5 out of 10.
Wow, I stuck consistent on this one. I gave it a 7. So
Okay.
I'm sticking. Same with Clueless. Like I think Clueless, like you said, is better written film. This one I think is just. I think this is more of a surprise. So like I think this is kind of. I had very similar viewing experiences with both. I laughed a lot with both. And now let's move
Yeah.
on to a film that I'm very excited to talk to you about because I know how you feel about the first one. Let's talk about
Okay.
Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Yeah.
So got a blanket exposition here. Kelsey and I did a 31 Days of Halloween episode recently, or not recently, a few months ago at this point, but we covered all the
Yeah.
movies. We talked about all the movies we watched Halloween in October, and she watched Ghostbusters for the first time, a film that I love, a film that she famously does not like,
Hmm.
and was underwhelmed by. So I was interested to see, as someone who is a fan watching Ghostbusters Afterlife versus someone who is not a fan watching this legacy sequel, because we've seen a lot of legacy
Mhm.
sequels at this point, where they bring back old actors for the new movies, but it's also kind of like this new generation of actors as well. I'm
Right.
very interested to see if you like this more, or if you like this less, or if this makes the original better, or if this is much better than the original. I want to know all your thoughts on this. So take us into the world of Ghostbusters Afterlife. Tell us about it, and then let us know what you thought.
All right, Ghostbusters Afterlife came out last year in 2022?
2021, late
2020.
2021. So it's a little over a year old.
Okay, so came out in 2021, directed by Jason Reitman?
Reitman, yep,
Uh,
son of
um,
Ivan Reitman, who directed the original Ghostbusters.
oh,
Hmm.
what a
Yeah, it's
fun little legacy moment there. I didn't know
in
that.
the family. In the family, he also
Wow,
directed.
keeping it in the family.
You might bring this up, but he also directed Juno, Up in the
Yes.
Air, Tully, Thank You for Smoking. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. I wrote down he directed Juno. He directed some episodes of the American Office. And he directed The Front Runner with starring Hugh Jackman.
Oh yeah. Mm.
So here's my little synopsis for Ghostbusters Afterlife. Years after the original Ghostbusters defeated Gozer in New York, signs of his return arise in a small town in Oklahoma, and it's up to Egon Spengler's grandchildren to defeat him.
Mm.
Um, well, first, Dill, I'll start this right off the bat, but saying I liked this one a lot better than the original. I just
Okay.
thought that tonally it felt more right. Like there was a little bit more of a spooky vibe to it. There were even some jump scares, not a ton. I definitely wouldn't call this like a scary movie or
No.
anything like that, but it just felt a little spookier. This like middle America small town vibes. This family that's kind of like down on their luck. They don't have like a ton of money. They go to clean out the house or like the collect the whatever's left of them of their grandfather who passed away, Egon Spengler, one of the original Ghostbusters. And spooky things arise and the
Yeah.
ghosts have not been busted and they need some good busting. um so I just liked it. Honestly, the standout for me, and also another Marvel actor in this one, McKenna Grace, who
That's
plays a
right.
young Carol Danvers in Captain Marvel, who's completely transformed for this movie. She has darker hair, cute little haircut on her. She's wearing glasses. She's this nerdy little girl who just loves science. And yeah, she was the standout for me in
Yeah.
this one
And
for sure.
another J.K. Simmons also in this one makes an appearance.
What? Where
Yeah.
was J.K. Simmons in this
he's
movie? Tell me
he's
right now.
I'll find a picture because I can't pronounce his name. Ivo Shandor. Um, he's got the big beard and the mustache. Let me find a picture. This, if you can see, he's this guy.
Oh,
Yeah,
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 I
that's
see.
J.K. Simmons. And then of course Carrie Coon, the mother, voices Proxima Midnight in Avengers Infinity War. So it's kind of cool little moments there. Right? Well, she does like the
Wait.
motion capture for Proxima Midnight. She's one of Thanos's like army girl. The
Yeah,
girl.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I know who Proxima Midnight is. Oh my god, Dill, you are so right. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Damn, I should have
I
made
think
that
that's it.
connection.
No, it's fine. And then we're gonna see, of course, Bill Murray in Quantumania. So a lot of crossover here. I know. Well, I gotta admit, I think the one thing I don't love about this movie is that it takes itself way too seriously, and it does feel more like your vibe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I think the vibe for me just felt so. I think on its own, like as like a spooky movie about like ancestry and going to this like little farmhouse and stuff like that. Like I think the vibes are great, but for a Ghostbusters sequel, it feels so tonally out of line with the original. Like it feels like
Sure.
these two movies do not belong in the same universe except for a
Right.
few effects. But then when those effects are like kind of cheesy and campy, they don't feel like they belong in this universe. So I
Right.
felt like almost this was the style was the one thing that I didn't love. But again, I'm coming from this as at an angle of someone who loves the original Ghostbusters,
Mm,
loves that kind of camp feel, that kind of low budget nature. Whereas here, I'm like, I don't know. It's almost a little too reimagined in terms of its style. But I do think a lot of the great callbacks to the original, I think the strongest aspects of this movie are the legacy moments. You know, when you bring the originals back at the end to fight,
mhm.
and you have the ghost, which we'll talk about that in a sec because that's a little bit of a problematic element.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you have the Stay Puft Marshmallow guys in the bag. Like I
Yeah.
love that stuff, especially because Paul Rudd is so funny in those moments too. And we'll talk about him.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think this is a great homage to the love and the fandom of Ghostbusters, but I think stylistically it's a little out of line. But I do
Sure.
think it's good. Like I enjoyed it when I saw it the first time in theaters. Um, for some reason though, it for me, I always prefer the original. I just think the original is more my speed in terms of what I want from a Ghostbusters film. But it's interesting talking to someone who just discovered the original and is like kind of looking at it from a different lens because I definitely think this is much more um in tune with a lot of the stuff that we're seeing nowadays and just movies nowadays. Like it feels very much like the style of what we're seeing nowadays, and I think that's a good thing. Like I think it's kind of in line with a lot of blockbusters that are being made, especially sci-fi horror-ish blockbusters. And it gave me a little bit of Stranger Things vibes because Finn
Yeah.
Wolfhard's in it, so maybe that's why.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but I did like it, and Paul Rudd's kind of like the Hopper type character. I don't know.
Sure.
And then there's a character named Podcast, so that's cool.
Yeah.
Reminded me of what I would be in this movie. Um, really quickly though, do you want to talk about the Harold Ramis shit because that's always kind of bugged me the wrong way. So Harold Ramis, who plays oh my god, what's his name again? The one who died, Yvonne
Egon
Egon
Spangler?
Spangler. I always forget his name because it's the most different. The other ones are Peter, Raymond, and Winston, and he's Egon. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
But he famously, or not famously, notably passed away about a decade ago now. At this point, Harold Ramis. And so for this movie, in the beginning, they have I think like a stand-in double, and the way they shoot the film is because the opening scene you see his character's death, but
Yeah.
they use a body double, obviously, and the way they film it, you can't really tell who it is or whatever. But then at the end, they decide to go the whole like kind of weird post-mortem type thing where they bring the old actor back even though he's dead and do like a CGI version of him, but they
Yeah.
also age him up to where like they're trying to make it seem like he was an actor in this movie. I always find it really uncomfortable when movies try to like recreate the actors who died. Like I know that was a big worry that would happen with Wakanda Forever is people are like, please just don't give us a CGI Chadwick because that's going to be
Yeah.
just so uncomfortable to watch. And I
Yeah.
think the CGI here is good, but it's just kind of weird where I'm like, it's almost a little kind of unsettling to see someone who and obviously they got permission by his estate and stuff, like they were able to use his face, but
Image.
like
Yeah.
but it just it kind of rubs me the wrong way. I don't know, I don't
Yeah.
like when movies do that. I'd rather them either just recast it or not have him there, like have it be the other
Yeah.
three show up in spirit of him. I think making a ghost Egon kind of like feels almost like they're trying too hard to like really lean into the IP, and when they don't have to. They have the other Ghostbusters there. It just felt like a little bit of a dirty practice to get the feels out of the audience. And I know
Sure.
some Ghostbusters fans who are off put by it, but some love it. They're like, "Oh my god, we get to see Harold Ramis again. Like this movie brought
Mm.
Harold back." And I'm like, I don't know. That part has always stuck out to me and always made me uncomfortable. But I don't know. Obviously, not being a super big fan of the original, like, did you have any thoughts about that, or in general using dead actors' faces and recreating their bodies with CGI? Because they did it with some Star Wars movies as well, with
Right, with
Grand Moff Tarkin.
Carrie.
Well,
Oh.
Carrie was different because they had already filmed her stuff and then she died. So they kind of just reused footage that they
Oh,
filmed.
okay.
Here, they're
Okay.
creating him out of CGI completely. Um,
Right.
so
Well,
any thoughts on that?
Dill, I'm embarrassed to say this is the first that I'm learning of this. I didn't know that the
Oh,
actor had passed away,
gotcha,
and that,
gotcha. Yeah.
which makes sense now because I was like, "Huh, it's a shame that they brought the original back and now like he can't be back with them." I was thinking that that was a little weird,
Yeah,
but now
yeah.
it makes so much sense
Mm,
that the actor
Harold
had
Ramis, yeah.
has passed, and that's why he's not with the original. Um
Mhm.
so yeah, it doesn't feel great. I feel like there's other ways of like kind of doing there's I feel like there's a line between doing something out of memorial for someone and then like disrespecting the dead. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? And I feel like this kind of like crosses that line a little bit because as much as I feel like they kind of pitched it to like his estate or his family members or whoever, like, oh, this would be a great heartwarming moment for fans of Ghostbusters. I agree with you. I think it was like a total like ploy to just like, tug on some like feelings. And it
also,
feels
like,
kind of gross, you
and the
know?
whole movie is the fact that he's not there, it's his spirit. And, like, that's the
Yeah.
whole movie is McKenna Grace's character kinda, like, feeling him around and, like, getting clues from him, but not seeing him. I don't know why
Mhm.
they just didn't go down that path. Even that first
Right.
scene, I don't mind because it's a body double, it's very hard to make out who it is anyway, so it's
Yeah.
like it doesn't feel disrespectful, but at the end, to bring him back, I was like, it was weird to me. It would be as if, like I said, like, if they brought Chadwick into Wakanda Forever for his, like, at the end, you see a ghost of him, but it's like this recreated CGI version. Like, it would have been so
Yeah.
weird, I think, and
Yeah.
off-putting. But let's
Yeah.
talk about Paul Rudd though, because that's what we're here to do. What do you think of Paul Rudd in this?
Yeah. I thought that out of the 3 movies that we watched, this is the most similar to Ant-Man. It might
Yeah.
just because this performance is fresh off of his,
Mhm.
he's in the midst of still playing the role of Scott
And he gets
Lang,
to do
so
some action
maybe.
here too, which helps.
Yeah. Honestly, Dill, this movie I liked it better than the original, but I don't want you to think that I like this movie or like think that
Right.
this was like a good movie. I mean, I thought it was fine. This movie had me up until like the end. First of all, I thought that this movie was entirely too long. I thought
Yeah.
that I feel like a big chunk of it could have been cut out or rushed or not as, went on as long as it did.
I agree with
And
that.
I think that he could have had a bigger part. He seemed really, really removed from the main storyline. Like maybe if they had started the relationship between him and the mother, like right off the bat, like day one when they moved to town, sort of thing, and they kind of had this blossoming romance throughout it. I feel like that would have worked better than it what had happened because like all in all, I feel like the movie is 2 hours long and I feel like we only watched him in like a quarter of it. Like I feel
Yeah,
like he was only in like 30 minutes total
yeah.
in this movie.
And we talked about how, like, kind of dirty studio practices with bringing back the dead, but I think it's also a dirty studio practice to cast a big star,
Mhm.
and then make him the central part of the marketing to get people to see it. Because I
Yes.
don't know if you remember those trailers. He was in every trailer, and the original trailer was just him in the grocery store with the Marshmallow Men.
Yes.
That was the trailer. So when
Yeah.
people saw this movie, they were like, "Oh, he's really not in it a ton." And honestly, when going back and picking the movies for this, I was like, "Well, let's watch that because it's new and he's the lead of it." Then I forgot when I was watching. I was like, "Oh wait, he's not the lead of it." And I think that's kind of another dirty studio practice of, well, Carrie Coon's not a big name, Finn Wolfhard's a big name, but not big enough to build a movie on. So like, let's make
Right.
him like our marquee selling point. at that point, you might as well just brand the Bill Murray, Ernie Hudson, and Dan Aykroyd as like the selling point. Say, oh, the original
Right.
Ghostbusters are coming and back. Because at the time when I saw this, and when most people saw this in theaters, nobody knew those three were coming back, or that they would bring
Right.
back Harold Ramis in CGI form. So like, no
Yeah.
one knew that was coming, even though people figured that would happen.
Sure.
Just because it's a legacy sequel, or maybe they did. Maybe I think the end of the trailer had like Bill Murray's voice picking up the phone and then hanging it up, or Dan Aykroyd, to where you were
Yeah.
like, okay, they're gonna make like a small appearance, and they do. It's a small
Yeah.
appearance, but
Yeah.
again, you're selling a different movie than is actually being presented. And while I think
Right.
he's good in it, I agree. Like I honestly think he was there to market the movie.
It was the same thing with Zendaya in Dune. She was like in 15
Yeah.
minutes of that movie, maybe.
The only
And
defense for that is that it's half of a book and she's a huge part of the second half, to where I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, you stop the story in the middle, she's going to have a bigger part in the second one. Here, there's no bigger part after this one. It's just that. But
right.
I get your sentiment. It's like they really used her in that marketing to be like, hey, look who's in this movie.
Hey, it's
It's
going to be
Euphoria.
Zendaya and Timothy Chalamet. No, it's going to be 90% Timothy Chalamet and sand,
Oh,
and then
nice.
5% Timothy Chalamet and Zendaya.
Yeah, I mean, look who's I had this right by it. Look whose face is the biggest next to Timothy's. It's Zendaya and Oscar Isaac. And
Yeah,
I'd argue that the next biggest character is his mom, and
right.
then honestly probably her. I don't know though. Like, Zendaya is not a huge part of that movie, and she's
I
like
watched that
right next
movie
to
when I
Timothy.
was hungover, so I couldn't tell you really what was going on there. But
Love
yeah,
it.
I honestly, this is the movie that I'm probably most disappointed in, just Paul Rudd wise, just because I feel like, this is a role that we've seen him do before. This one feels like the most similar, and not, and like I am not completely blaming him, because I think that they didn't really write his character to be a super big, pivotal role in this at all.
Mhm.
So I think that he was doing the best with what he had. Um, but yeah, I kind of wish that we picked a different movie to
Yeah,
end
I'm
on,
sorry.
just because.
No, it
No,
was
it's
also my
fine. We were
memory too.
both
Yeah, I was like,
played.
yeah,
We were played
yeah.
by the marketing. We
Yeah.
thought
But
he was going to be
I had
bigger.
seen the movie already in theaters, and
Oh,
I was played. I was
okay.
played
Well,
by
then
my
yeah,
own.
I do blame you.
Well, it's because the most memorable moments for me was, is that Harold Ramis recreated by CGI? And oh,
Hmm.
he's fighting the little marshmallow man. Like, those are the two
Right.
moments I remembered. So I was
Yeah.
like, oh, cool, he's in it. But
And
also it's good because
also,
that's like his most recent big movie next to Ant-Man. So I think
yeah,
it is important to look at in terms of a whole career. I get why we picked it. But
yeah.
again, if we do round twos of all these, assuming Marvel's Movie Mondays goes on to like 2068, we're gonna need to revisit more movies, and we'll talk about fundamentals of caring. We'll talk about 40-Year-Old Virgin, Anchorman, Wet Hot American
Yeah.
Summer, some of those. So
And honestly, Dale, I should have seen the originals coming back. I remember hearing Bill Murray's voice in the trailer, but I didn't know if that was just like a trauma response I was having, because I hate like
Bill Murray.
seeing and hearing
Oh,
Bill Murray.
oh yeah,
Um
okay.
yeah, that's what I was getting to, essentially. But I was like, "Oh, yeah, I totally did hear his voice in the trailer, so he's definitely coming." And I just feel like it took them so long to get there, to get them
Mhm,
to the original to come back and help
mhm,
defeat Gozer. So it was just like, yeah, it really had me up until like the mom and Paul Rudd like got possessed, and they were like being really weird and like saying weird things to each other, and I was like, okay, you've lost me.
yeah.
I've had enough now. I would like this to be over.
Yeah.
Uh
Like, I was reading back my original review, and I leaned positive on it. I gave it like a 6 out of 10, which to me is like positive. But now thinking
yeah.
about it and talking about it, I'm like, I think I'm bumping it down to a 5. I'm
I
going
also
5 out of
gave it
10.
a 6 out of 10, and I'm also rethinking that ranking
I'm
now.
bumping it down to a 5 right now. I'm
But
literally
as
doing it as we speak on my letterbox. I'm like, boop.
but like I said right off the bat, the person that I was most impressed with watching this film was McKenna Grace, and I'm honestly God happy that she's a Marvel actor, because then this watching this movie wasn't a total bust, because this movie just made me so excited for her career, because she's still so young. She's done like so many different roles now. She's been, she's done like the young Carol Danvers stuff. She was in the movie Gifted with Chris Evans, another obviously Marvel actor, where she played the really intelligent girl. And in this movie, I just thought that she really just transformed into this whole other side of her that we haven't seen yet. And she's so young, and I'm just like, I cannot wait for
Yeah,
her to grow up and like see what she does next. I think
I
that
think
she's going to
she's
be like the next star on the rise. I'm really, really excited for her.
yeah, I fully think she's the strongest part of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if I had to say there was a standout, it's her and then the little marshmallow scene, for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
And I even
that's
liked your little friend podcast.
yeah. I mean,
He was
yeah,
very
how can
funny too.
I mean, yeah. uh, I mean, yeah, yeah. It's just funny because his name's like I don't know. Uh,
Yeah.
Also, did you notice there was Baskin Robbins in the store?
Yes, I did see the Baskin Robbins, and I just thought, dude, why are you buying Baskin Robbins? It's trash.
Also, it's a different movie callback, so I get why they
Eh,
did it. But yeah,
Yeah,
no,
for sure.
no, but you're right. It's not the best, but I still like it. I still have some in
Yeah,
my
that's
freezer.
crazy.
Not the ones we had. Like I finished that, but like I
No,
got it.
I
It's
figured.
in the freezer. You know what was really good though when Dunkin', because
Yeah.
Dunkin' and Baskin Robbins have the same owners. I
Mhm.
love when Dunkin' does the Baskin Robbins flavored coffees. It's like
Oh,
kind of they've
okay.
got like mint chocolate chip or Rocky Road flavored
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
coffees. I'm like those are fun. So you give it a 5 as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's 5 for me as well. So overall, like not the best slate of movies, but I still think it's like it's a good showcase of Paul Rudd's
Mhm.
versatility. The likable everyman in Clueless, kind of the more dad action figure in Ghostbusters Afterlife, and then kind of the enemy turn or like unlikable guy turned hero in Role
Yeah.
Models, kind of the whole package. But that's that. Uh, that is Paul Rudd Movie Club. Kelsey, next week we will be talking for Valentine's Day. We have something fun planned. Why don't you tell the viewers what we're doing
Yes.
for Valentine's Day?
We are going to be ranking the Marvel ships. A little lovey-dovey episode and nod
Yeah,
to
like the Nina, the
Valentine's
Pinta, the
Day.
Santa Maria, like those ships.
Okay. I mean the relationship still.
Oh,
The like Peggy and Steve,
you gotta
Tony and
keep people
Pepper,
updated
Vision
with the
and Wanda.
lingo. The
I'm
lingo.
sorry. I'm
No
trying
one
to
knows the
isn't
ship
what the
stuff.
kids are saying about isn't that,
Yeah, yeah.
Gen
No, you're
Z
right.
lingo? I'm
No, you're
trying
right.
to,
You're right.
I'm
Okay.
pandering to an
Are we
audience
picking? Are we
still.
picking like a top 10, or we're just gonna rank every single one? Or are you gonna like give me a list?
Well, I'll make a list of
Okay, and then
all
we'll
that
rank
I
them.
think the most important ones are, and then we'll rank them together.
Cool. So let us
Sound
know
good?
down below which couples or which ships we should include next week on that list.
Which is your favorite Marvel ship?
Um,
I like that one too.
yeah. The
Sorry,
Dill
just
Pickle Movie
like
Network
Dora
and
the Explorer
YouTube is
bit.
my favorite ship. The Dill Pickle Podcast and the Dill Pickle Movie Network is my favorite ship. No, it's really
Shameless self plug.
Dylan and Miss Minutes will be on there. We are going to be number one, Dylan and Miss Minutes, and we can put Kelsey and whoever you want to be paired up with on the
In the
list too.
Marvel universe,
Yeah.
I guess I have to pick someone who isn't taken.
Well, Miss
I'll
Minutes.
I'll think of this. Well, you
Yeah.
have Miss
No.
Minutes.
Right. So she's taken, is what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying. So I have to. No, but I mean like a character that's
Oh, okay.
not also involved with
Yeah.
someone else. Oh,
No,
you
I
know
was
who I
totally
picked?
joking, but okay.
Easy. I want to be
Yeah.
paired up with Bucky.
Okay, fine. Yeah, so Kelsey and
Yes.
Bucky and me and Miss Minutes will be on the ranking too, just for funsies. But yeah, Kelsey will give me a full list, and then next week we'll rank them. Otherwise, that's all from me. You can find me at Dylan_Randazzo at Twitter. You can find me Dylan Randazzo 417 at TikTok. You can find me at the Dill Pickle Movie Network if you're watching. Also, we just launched a podcast for the network called the Dill Pickle Podcast. This is still its own podcast because it's been fine on its own. So you can find us here on the Marvel-ous Movie Mondays podcast, but also check out the Dill Pickle Podcast. We got 2 podcasts going. We got a movie network. We got some socials. It's a bunch of fun. And we're doing a 24-hour subathon on the 18th where we will be doing our Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania review live during that subathon, which will be a lot of fun. And we'll be having 2 trivia matches during that subathon. We'll be having a Harry Potter match during that subathon, which Kelsey will be competing in. It'll be a fun old time. Kelsey, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Kelsey A. Kilpatrick, and you can follow me on TikTok at Cause13. I have some projects in the works that'll
Ooh.
probably be coming out later on in the year. So when those are up and running, I'll
Anything
surely
you can
announce
tease?
those.
No?
Well, if you go to my YouTube channel at Cause Productions, you'll notice that I've been working on a sketch series with me and my friend Lily called Heidi and Lola, and
Mm-hmm.
you might be seeing more of those down the
Cool.
line.
Cool.
So I'm excited for that. And I might be venturing off to do my own little cute little podcast. So stay tuned for that as well.
Very exciting. We love to see it. And thank you again, as Kelsey said in the beginning of the episode, we have a lot of great subscribers. Thank you for coming aboard. And thank you for continuing to come aboard. And please tune in on the 18th. We're going to try to hit, the goal is 2,000 subscribers, but I don't think we'll get there. But we have some
Okay.
prizes that we're going to unlock for every amount of subscribers we get. 15 subscribers unlocks that Harry Potter match. So if you want to see this one go up against three other hosts from the show, from the channel,
If you
you
want to
gotta,
see me win at yet another movie trivia event, you'll subscribe to the channel during the subathon.
yep. And then if we hit, what did I say, 500 subscriptions, we are going to have the roast of Dill, which is where Kelsey and all other hosts of the channel, Kelsey will be hosting that roast and will help give me some humble pie on a silver platter.
Yeah.
So I'm
Anything
very,
that I can do, Dill.
so I would encourage you not to subscribe, but I want you to subscribe. So if you subscribe, it's a win-lose for me. Anyway, thank you guys so much. I rambled on enough, but thank you. Enjoy this final new intro, new year, new intro. We'll see you next time.